The movie opens in the year 2001, featuring an aimless teenager, Megan Levy, who lives in Valley Cottage, New York. She narrates that her life has become meaningless after her best friend's death due to drug overdose. She seems to be fed up by her unsupportive family as well as her dead-end job as a primary teacher. As a result, her depression eventually hinders her work performance, causing her to get fired from the job. In a desperate bid to escape this monotony, Megan makes a brave decision one morning. She boards a bus to the airport and leaves the city in order to enlist in the U.S. Marines. The following evening, Megan arrives at a boot camp in Parris Island, South Carolina, where a commanding officer immediately instructs the newcomers to stand in a line. He strictly announces them of the rigorous training they'll be going through to qualify for the Marines. From the very next day, their harsh training begins, and Megan tries her best to perform well. After several months of intense training and practice, she successfully makes it to the graduation. On this day, all the new cadets celebrate with their families, but Megan's mother arrives late with her boyfriend, Jim. Following this, the trio goes to a restaurant where Mom asks Megan if she has heard from her dad. She also inquires if the man left anything for her. Unfortunately, the questions upset Megan as she realizes that her mother is only interested in money, so she walks off. In the next scene, Megan, who is now a Marine, is transferred to San Diego County, California, where she is assigned to Camp Pendleton. She, along with two other newcomers, are welcomed by the Master Sergeant, who encourages them to do good work. Later that night, Megan accompanies her new friends to a bar where they have some fun. They eventually get drunk and make noise as they return back to their camp building. Megan then proceeds to relieve herself behind a bush, while the other continues to drink. Just then, a soldier on patrol catches them and spots Megan in the bush. As a consequence of her recklessness, Megan is reported to the Master Sergeant the next morning. He issues a strict and last warning, threatening to kick her out of the camp if she messes up again. As part of her punishment, she is assigned to clean the cages of the K-9 bomb detector dogs. Following this, she is handed over to the dog unit's in charge, Gunny Martin, for a week. Later, while clearing the kennels, Megan comes across a German Shepherd named Rex and approaches it, believing it to be friendly. However, her assumption proves wrong as it startles her by barking at her violently. Afterwards, Megan is used as a decoy to train the dogs and teach them how to stop attacking. She is scared as the officers bring Rex on the scene. As they release the dog towards her, it goes out of control and bites her buttocks. After this incident, Megan approaches Gunny and asks what she can do to become a dog handler. In response, the in-charge says that she must get perfect scores in the upcoming exams, so she decides to train harder. After several weeks of determination, she aces her exams and presents her results to Gunny. But since there aren't enough dogs, she has to start practicing her handling with an ammo box, amusing her fellow soldiers. One day, Gunny gathers the soldiers and introduces them to an experienced Marine from Iraq, Sergeant Andrew Dean. Andrew tells them that all they've learned isn't enough to go for the war and that they need sharper intelligence. Later, during ongoing training, a soldier named Walter, who is in charge of Rex, fails to control his dog. As a result, he ends up getting bitten by it. Now that he's injured, Gunny dismisses Walter from the position of Rex's in charge and hands over the responsibility to Megan. It's clearly a challenge for her because she has only a short time to bond with the dog, as the unit will soon be deployed to Iraq for the real mission. That evening, Megan goes to feed Rex, but being a stubborn dog, it doesn't listen to her commands. Thus, she resorts to sitting and waiting outside the kennel without giving the food until it complies. Her technique works as Rex soon obeys. As the days pass by, they start bonding with each other, and Megan is no longer afraid of the dog. Things get better when she starts conversing with Rex as if it's her friend, and even lets it sleep in her room instead of the kennel. Simultaneously, Andrew also helps the dog handlers improve their skills. He tells them that their pet is confident only when the owners are confident. Finally, the deployment day arrives and the soldiers, along with their dogs, board the plane to Iraq. After a few hours of flight, they arrive at their destination, Camp Ramadi in Al Anbar province. Being the only girl, Megan gets a separate room, enabling her to keep Rex with her. The next morning, while walking around the camp, she sees a soldier, Matt Morales, training his dog, Chico. As she approaches him, she's startled by a gunshot. Matt tells her not to worry because the shots are outgoing. He and Megan then gear up and report themselves to Sergeant Jarvis, who assigns them with a checkpoint duty. On their way to the checkpoint, Matt tells Megan to be extra careful because the rebels have a special hatred towards female dog handlers. Upon arrival, they see the soldiers checking each and every resident before letting them pass through the checkpoint. Megan also joins in the same, and during one inspection, a little boy asks her dog's name. After completing the inspection, Megan reveals Rex's name, but she's reprimanded by Matt, warning her not to do so. Returning back to the camp, Megan pets her dog, saying that they'll get better at their job. Not long after, an officer knocks on her door and instructs her gear up, as they're going for a mission. Megan wonders why she's selected, to which the officer responds that they don't have anyone else. Shortly after, they arrive at the site of a recent bombing where several soldiers lost their lives. Megan accompanies the soldiers to a resident's house and instructs Rex to sniff around. The dog soon climbs up to a pile of carpets and sits, indicating that there's something. The soldiers then remove the carpet on the wall, only to discover a large cache of guns. They immediately arrest the resident and confiscate the guns. Following the successful operation, Matt commends Megan for her performance, and the soldiers have some celebration that night. Amidst the joyful moment, Megan plays cards with Matt while talking about their personal lives. When he asks about her reason to join the Marine, she tells him about her late best friend. Their conversation takes an emotional turn, so Megan opts going to bed. The following day, Megan and Rex, along with the soldiers, go for another mission and locate an explosive hidden on a highway. Over the next several months, Megan and Rex are able to sniff out numerous IEDs and other weapons, saving the lives of hundreds of Marines. But during one mission, things take an unexpected turn. While detecting multiple landmines in a deserted land, they see a car approaching. The soldiers fire in the air, making the car stop and the driver step out. They apprehend the driver before instructing Megan and Rex to inspect the vehicle. As they slowly head towards the car, a bomb suddenly explodes beside them, sending them flying. The medic rushes to help Megan and Rex and brings them to safety. Thankfully, they're okay with some minor injuries. The commanding officer wonders how Rex didn't detect the bomb, but soon learns that the landmine was manually detonated. They look around and notice some movement in an abandoned building at a distance. The commanding officer decides to call for another dog handler, but Megan asserts that they don't have enough time for it. She assures that she and her dog are all right and insists on continuing. After this, Megan and Rex lead the other soldiers towards the building, while avoiding the landmines on their way. They slowly make it into the building and start inspecting the area with the help of Rex. Eventually, they make their way to the roof, where they discover the remnants of explosives. This makes them realize that the enemies left recently. Just then, Rex begins to bark, but nobody is able to figure out what's wrong. All of a sudden, an enemy fires a rocket launcher from a distance, but Rex manages to pull away a soldier moments before the launcher hits the building's wall. Sensing the imminent threat, the soldiers proceed to retreat, while the reinforcement makes their way towards the building in their tanks. They then carefully leave the building and head to the vehicle while covering for one another. Megan also makes a run towards the vehicle, but before entering, another explosion takes place beside her, tossing her away. Despite this setback, she somehow manages to get up and make it to the truck, ultimately fleeing the scene. As soon as they arrive back at the camp, Megan is transported to the hospital, leaving Rex with Matt. When she wakes up, she demands to see her dog, but the doctor informs her that she'll be out of service for 3 weeks. After receiving the required treatments, Megan is discharged from the hospital and is sent back home. At the airport, she's picked up by her father, Bob, who salutes before embracing her. He then drops her to her mother's house before heading to work. For the next few days, Megan repeatedly calls Camp Pendleton to inquire if Rex arrived, but she receives no information about it. 3 weeks pass and Megan returns to duty. There, she finally meets Rex, who has just returned from Iraq, leading to a happy reunion. But sadly, Rex is still injured, so he has to go through several medical treatments. One day, Megan returns to her room and notices some flowers outside her door. Turns out to be Matt's doing, and she is really happy to see him. The two chat then for a while, and they end up having intercourse in her room. In the later days, Megan tries to resume training with Rex, but it isn't ready yet. Realizing that her dog is still in pain, she decides not to re-enlist for another mission. She shares her decision with Gunny and also wishes to adopt Rex, to which the in-charge agrees. That night, Megan talks to Matt, who tells her that he has re-enlisted and that he'll be soon going for another mission. This upsets her, but she opts not to talk about it. In the next scene, Megan takes Rex to a vet for a regular checkup. During this, the doctor touches the dog's injured part, causing it to react. She then concludes that it's violent and labels it as unadoptable. Megan tries to explain that its reaction stems from pain, but the doctor dismisses her and walks away. A few days later, Megan learns that Rex is being redeployed for the mission with a new handler. Concerned for the dog's safety, she goes to Gunny and begs him for help, but the latter says that he can do nothing due to the vet's report. Following this, she goes to see Rex for one last time and sobs while apologizing to him. She then drives back to her house with tears rolling down her eyes. The following morning, Megan wakes up to find that her mother has brought another dog, intending to replace Rex. But this only upsets our girl, and she yells at her mother before storming off. She then drives to her father's place and starts living there. Time flies, but Megan is unable to stop thinking about Rex. This gradually degrades her mental health, and as a result, she begins attending therapy sessions. One morning, Bob walks into Megan's room and tries to console her. He offers words of encouragement, urging her to persevere and not surrender to despair. This wakes up her spirit, after which she makes several calls in order to know Rex's whereabouts. Some days later, she receives a call from Rex's current dog handler, who tells her that Rex is about to retire. She asks if they've put him up for adoption, but the latter answers in the negative. Despite this, Megan doesn't lose hope and tries contacting Veteran Services. She goes as far as meeting a senator and informs him about her predicament. Much to her elation, she receives a positive response from him. In addition, she begins a campaign to allow not just her, but all handlers to be able to adopt their dogs once their time in the military is over. She also starts a petition and even appears on TV talk shows, reaching out to many more people. Eventually, Megan gets a lot of support as well as 22,000 signatures for her petition. The scene then cuts to Rex's retirement day, and Megan goes to attend the ceremony at Camp Pendleton. As she enters the camp, she is surprised by Matt, who is also here for his dog's retirement. Amidst their brief chit-chat, he expresses his decision to retire after the completion of his current mission. Furthermore, he also shares a very good news. The Marines have finally agreed to let her adopt Rex. Following this, Megan walks towards the ground where she spots Rex. She calls out her pet, and it immediately runs towards her, leading to an emotional reunion. After the ceremony, Megan brings Rex home, and then she starts spending her days playing with it. In the next scene, Megan and Rex are summoned to Yankee Stadium where they're honored for their bravery during missions in Iraq. As an officer recounts their heroic stories, a large crowd in the audience, including her parents, cheer for them. She also notices Matt and some fellow officers watching her from a large screen. From the post-credits scene, we learn that Rex lived out his days with Megan until his passing in 2012. Today, Megan works as a veterinary technician in New Jersey and still does bomb detection at high-profile locations like the United Nations. Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.